undefeated. What up, YouTube? So, before I get started with this video, I just want to go over something because I just don't want the wrong idea to be put out there. You know, I'm not ashamed of who I am. I'm not ashamed of, you know, my race or anything like that. I do these videos because I'm just trying to show that, you know, you don't have to be a fanboy. You don't have to be, you don't have to roll with a fighter just because they are of your race. And I think the best way is to lead by example. So, you know, that's why I did my last video with the criticisms of Danny Garcia. And now I'm about to criticize another of my own. Because for those of you who don't know, I'm also half Mexican. Now, as I stated before, I'm not ashamed of who I am. I'm not ashamed of what I am. I'm not ashamed of my people as a whole. But I am somewhat embarrassed and disappointed that people of my own race would conduct their careers in such a fashion. I'm very proud of the greats. The great Felix Trinidad, you know, the late Diego Corrales, you know, much respect to them. And even Miguel Cotto, I'm proud of him to a certain extent. Not necessarily his actions as of late, but and then also Chavez Sr., Fernando Vargas, you know, both heritages just have such a rich history in boxing. You know, Eric Morales, you know, there's just so much to be proud of there. So I don't want people to get the wrong idea that I'm just a self-hating or, you know, I do this to try to get props or anything like that, because I'm not. It's just, this is the type of fan that I am. I don't follow or go for a fighter just because they're the same race as me. So, that being said, let me go ahead and begin. So, it's not a secret. There's no way that if you're watching this video, you don't know that the fight between Canelo Alvarez and Amir Khan was made. Now, as far as Canelo Alvarez is concerned, in the past, I was a hardcore Canelo Alvarez fan. I was a fanboy. When he fought Floyd Mayweather, I actually believed at the time that he would beat him. I just kept telling myself he's a younger guy. He's bigger, you know, and out with the old and with the new. And of course, the fact that he was Mexican also played a factor into that fanboyism. And we all know the story. He lost that fight. And I mean, there's nothing to be ashamed of. He lost to the #1 pound for pound fighter at the time. So, unlike a lot of other people, I just didn't think that he was a bum. I didn't lose faith in him. It's like I said, he lost to the #1 fighter in the world at the time. So, I still have faith in him. But somewhere along the line, with the questionable decision over Lara and the catch weights, you know, the Canelo weight, I just didn't have that same what's the word I look, you know, I just didn't care for him nowhere near as much. You know, he somewhat lost some of my respect, but I still liked him. Going into the Cotto fight, I wanted him to win. I picked him to win as well, because I'm sure you know there's a difference. But, you know, when he started talking this stuff about when it was going to come time to fight Triple G, that he had to fight him at a 155-pound catch weight, I found that to be just baffling. I couldn't believe that he would even try that. It's one thing to fight, you know, at a 155-pound catch weight, you know, when you're fighting at 154 pounds. I mean, I don't agree with it, but it's not completely unreasonable. It's going up 1 pound. And, you know, in the fight against Cotto, I didn't really agree with the 100. What was it? I believe it was a 155 catch weight, if I'm not mistaken. For some reason, I think it might be 157, but I'm pretty sure it was 155. But I wasn't exactly mad at it as either, just because Canelo was coming up in weight. So there's a difference between you're the 160-pound champion and you're making other 165 or 160-pounders fight you at catch weights for your 160-pound belt. But when you have somebody who's coming up, then that's a little bit different. Now, to be honest, I don't agree with the fact that it was for the WBC belt at all. And that is because Canelo, yes, he's a big name, but he had never fought at middleweight before. And I just don't believe, I believe you got to earn your stripes. And he didn't do that. So I don't even agree with the fact that the title was on the line. Really, I think it should have been a non-title bout, which would have been fine because, if I'm not mistaken, Cotto was either stripped or vacated before the fight happened. So Cotto technically wasn't even the champ when he fought Canelo. But anyways, that's all just technicalities. I mean, it is what it is. Fact of the matter is, I don't believe that Canelo's first fight should have been for a title in that division. But anyways, so then came along Oscar De La Hoya talking about this 90-10 split. And I'm not going to get into that anymore. I've already made 2 videos on it. You know how I feel about it. It's a price out. So, Canelo's making every excuse in the world not to fight Triple G. Has to be at a 155-pound catch weight, even though it's a middleweight title belt that he shouldn't have had to begin with. And this is a fight that everybody wants to see. The only people who don't want to see that fight are people who straight up hate Triple G, and that's just the fact. Those are the only people who don't want to see this fight, are people who hate Triple G, because if Triple G gets that fight, Triple G is one step closer to becoming undisputed middleweight champion of the world. But everybody else wants to see that fight. If you're a boxing fan, you want to see that fight. Whether you're a Triple G fan or not, you want to see that fight. So, anyways, that being said, Canelo has been probably the most irritating boxer within the past 6 months. It's between him and Ward. And that's just because Ward is inactive. Like, he's irritating, but at the same time, I don't find him himself irritating. You know, it's just irritating that, you know, he's so inactive. I don't even want to count the Paul Smith fight, because that was like zero competition for him. But anyways, it's about Ward. Canelo to me is the most irritating boxer to me at this time. So now on to the news that came out yesterday. So Canelo makes his first defense against Amir Khan. Now, I'm going to give criticism and praise to Amir Khan at the same time. Let me start with the praise. I mean, you can't say that the boy's ducking Kell Brook. Canelo's way more dangerous. It's probably the biggest fight he could have made legacy-wise that I could think of. And they're both big names. I mean, let's face it, there's just two big names, and that's the only reason why I see this fight is even being made, which is not a good reason. But gotta give props to him. He's definitely taking a risk. I know a lot of people are saying he has nothing to lose, but really he does, which is his health. I mean, Canelo is just a lot bigger than him, and this is a dangerous fight for him. And then also, given his history, I mean, it is fact he doesn't have the best chin. So, but big props to him on that. But here are my criticisms. And this actually goes with what I was saying before about Canelo getting a shot at the middleweight belt. Why would Khan get a shot at the middleweight belt? He's never fought at middleweight. He's only had 3 fights at welterweight. But yeah, only 1 fight at middleweight. No fights at middleweight. No fights at junior middleweight. So you can't even give him that. Which I wouldn't give him that anyways, but just to entertain how some people think in the sport of boxing. No fights at junior middleweight. What in the world awards him a shot at the 160-pound middleweight belt? He's the number 1 contender for the welterweight belt, but not the middleweight. So what sense does that make? It makes 0 sense. So there's problem number 1. Problem number 2, this is a cherry pick. This is a lamb being fed to a lion. I mean, you want to talk about a David and Goliath fight. That's exactly what this is. Usually David and Goliath fights, we think of 2 people in the same weight division. The one who is either very inexperienced or has, lost many times before, and we just don't see how he's going to beat this undefeated, or maybe not undefeated, but somebody who hasn't been beaten in a very long time kind of fight. You know, the Tyson Fury Klitschko fight was somewhat of a David and Goliath fight. I say somewhat because Klitschko's old and Fury's big, so it kind of was, because on paper it was a David and Goliath fight, but if you look at their at all the factors, you realize it really wasn't. But anyways, that's what we usually think of. But this is a real David and Goliath fight. You literally have the much bigger man fighting the much smaller man. And he's gonna need a miracle. He really is. He might want to pack 2 smooth stones in them gloves, because he's gonna need every miracle that he needs. He's gonna need every miracle he can get. And I just don't see any way he could win this fight. So, I mean, that being said, I'm ashamed of Canelo. I really am. I mean, I really hope that the Triple G fight happens. Let me just say that. I'm not going to wish any ill will on the dude, but I hope that fight happens. That's all I got to say. I'm not going to buy this pay-per-view because I'm not going to support a slaughter. That's what it's going to be. It's going to be a slaughter. There's no way. I think 78 said it the best. He has no luck, no puncher's chance, no chance in the world at winning this fight. And I have to agree. And I think Cotto said it the best. He basically gave up his mandatory position at welterweight to go get killed in middleweight. That's what he did. I mean, I don't know. Maybe there's something I'm not seeing here, but I've heard some people say, "Oh, this is a good fight," and all this stuff, and in my head I'm thinking, on what planet is this a good fight? Adrien Broner apparently came out on Twitter, and actually, big shout out to Q. I don't remember how you say his first name, but he's actually gonna be my next spotlight. Be looking out for that. But he said that Adrien Broner put out a tweet saying that Amir Khan's gonna win that fight. Now, either Adrien Broner is trolling, or he's trying to get us talking about him, or he's smoking some crack. Because you delusional if you think Amir Khan's gonna win that fight. I mean, there's just no way. And I just want to touch on this as well, because it just seems like these sanctioning bodies are going crazy. The WBA offered Miguel Cotto a shot at the 154 title against Lara. I'm not saying that's not a good fight, but how in the world does somebody get a title shot after a loss? I mean, that's basically the same thing that happened with Broner. He lost, he went down the division and fought for a title and won it. I'm not saying that Miguel Cotto would win that fight, because that's a very tough fight to call, but I just don't agree with the fact that he's coming off a loss. Why should he get a title shot? And then the whole thing with Danny Garcia, I've already explained why he shouldn't have even gotten a title shot at welterweight. So I don't know what the hell is going on with these stupid ass sanctioning bodies, but it's really stupid. And then the last thing I want to say before I end this video is, you got 2 fights with 2 Heyman fighters going over to HBO. You got this one, because Khan is a Heyman fighter going over to HBO. Now, you could argue, well, you know, Khan has a special contract and he has a name and all this stuff. Okay, all right, I hear you there. But Dominic Wade is also going over to fight on HBO against Triple G. To my knowledge, Dominic Wade is not a big name. To my knowledge, Dominic Wade, you know, doesn't have a special contract with Val Heyman. So, that being said, if these two guys can go and fight over on HBO, then why can't Stevenson? Obviously, Kovalev has a exclusive contract with HBO. Obviously, our Heyman fighters are able to go over and fight on HBO. So, obviously, Stevenson doesn't have a leg to stand on. Heyman has all this money. You don't think that if you insist that it be on Showtime, that Heyman can go and pay HBO so that they will allow Kovalev to fight on Showtime? There is no excuse why this fight can't be made. And I don't care what anybody says, I don't see how that falls on Kovalev. Because the proof is right here. We got two Heyman fighters that are going to fight on HBO within the first half of the year. You can't tell me that Stevenson can't go over to HBO and fight Kovalev, or that he can't talk to Heyman to make it happen on Showtime. He has more leverage as far as making the fight is concerned. And I would think that if Heyman were to put the money up to HBO to let him fight on Showtime, I would think that all Kovalev would have to do is agree to a 40%. I would say a 40% of the purse. I think that would be fair. 60-40 lion's share for Stevenson. If that were to happen, I would have no problem with that. But nobody could tell me that Heyman fighters can't fight on HBO, because we got two happening in the first half of this year. Anyways, y'all let me know what y'all think. Y'all have a good day. Undefeated.